Om Namah Shivaya. Sometimes I wonder whether our history has been suppressed deliberately by either the Westerners or some other persons in the country. Because the history which we have read in school is somehow not keeping up with what we observe in our own country. You are all aware of the Indus Valley civilization which existed about 5,000 years ago. It was spread right from Mohenjo-daro to Harappa, Lothal, Kalibangan, Dholavira, Rakhigadi, etc. right up to UP and even in Gujarat. So the expense of the Indus Valley civilization was very huge, and they were a very highly advanced people who suddenly vanished. Now, not only the Indus Valley civilization persons who lived in those cities had excellent urban planning skills, but also they had very good sewage system, roads, double-story houses, and a lot of jewelry, seals, etc. were discovered from these sites. It appeared from the investigation by the ASI at these sites that these people were basically very peace-loving people who used to live quietly and were not exactly a warrior race. But on the other hand, if you see Sinoli in Bhagpat district in UP, then one would realize that this race in Sinoli in Bhagpat district was a warrior kind of race. In Bhagpat in Sinoli, in 2005, 116 skeletons were found. When a farmer was digging, then he found some traces of bones, etc., gold bangles, etc. And later on, the ASI did a detailed survey of the area and excavated this entire plot of land. The skeletons found at Sinoli at Bhagpat was subject to a DNA test, and it was found that these remains were about 4,000 to 4,500 years old. Now, what is very difficult to understand is that this race was perhaps not connected with the Indus Valley civilization, because the persons who died, who were found buried in this area, were basically warriors. Both men and women were warriors. They had highly advanced weaponry, spears, bows, arrows, swords, daggers. And not only this, they also had a shield to protect the warrior. So this shield was also beautifully decorated with copper, refined copper being used to design the shield. Shields for men and women both were found in Sinoli. Now, what is even more significant is that for the first time in our country, 3 beautifully designed chariots were discovered at Sinoli. These chariots had beautiful wheels designed with copper inlay work. There was a pole in the front, most probably attached to horses, because horse bones was also found in this area. And the entire chariot was beautifully decorated for the warriors. In the graves, the weapons were also buried along with the warrior where it was found. Pottery was buried, and there was also jewelry in case of women warriors, bangles, etc., made of gold, beads, and other locally available material, terracotta, etc. So, this was definitely a warrior race which lived at Sinali, and one has to wonder whether this civilization, this race, was perhaps involved in the Mahabharata. Because if you remember, Pandavas had asked for 5 villages from the Kauravas. One of the 5 villages asked for by the Pandavas included Bhagpat. So, is it possible that these warriors had fought the Mahabharata war about 5,000 years ago? And somehow they were linked to the Mahabharata war. The average height of men in this area in Sinali was between 5-10 feet to about 8 feet. And the women were generally 5 feet 6 inches and above. Coffin was size of about 8 feet. So men were basically 5.10 feet to about 7-8 feet tall. And they were definitely warriors because of the kind of weapons etc. found in this entire area. The 3 chariots which were found in Sinali, they were even much more designed beautifully and much better than what chariots have been found in Mesopotamia and Egyptian civilizations. So we should be very proud that in India about 5,000 years ago there was an advanced and highly sophisticated chariot for the use of these warriors. In another of my videos, I have talked about Ramayana being our prehistory. Now, why I have called Ramayana as prehistory of the Hindus? Because after working in detail and researching the entire subject, I could find out that the movement, the travel of Lord Ram with Sita and Lakshman was very sequential, and these geographical areas continue to be the same. The route of Sri Ram from Ayodhya to Sri Lanka can be well documented. In fact, the time he took to return from Rameshwaram back to Ayodhya is also correct. Not only this, in the Ramayana, it has been very clearly mentioned that what kind of flora and fauna existed about 7,000 years ago. These flora and fauna have been found to be correct and exactly true as described in the Ramayana. For instance, when Lord Hanumanji goes to Sri Lanka and he sees that not only guards and other Rakshasis are securing the fort, but also there are 4 tusked elephants who are guarding this area, the entire fort. Later on, what was written 7,000 years ago, it was found that exactly 4 tusked mammoths, elephants, existed on earth at that time. And skeletal bones of these mammoths have been discovered in different parts of the world. If you want, you can see the detailed video about Ramayana being our prehistory. The existence of Ashok Vatika in Sri Lanka is also true even to this day. The footprints of Hanumanji are still there, and also the events described in Ramayana are so exactly sequential, distance wise. Even the local tribes who helped Sri Ram to reach Sri Lanka, everything has been described, and at that time this actually existed. The Ram Setu, which was built by Sri Ram to reach Sri Lanka, till about 1480, one could walk over the Ram Setu to reach Sri Lanka. But later on, a cyclone came, due to which a major part was submerged under the sea. Later on, in 1964, another cyclone came, in which most of the Ram Setu got submerged. But Rameshwaram temple records show that this Ram Setu could be crossed on foot till about 1480. Ramayana is such a big epic, and its stories have travelled to so many countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, Bali, Malaysia, and even it is believed that one of the queens of South Korea, she was a daughter of Ayodhya. So, all these incidents actually prove that Ramayana is not a myth, and it is actually our prehistory. Similarly, Mahabharata is also a part of our history, because everybody knows that it took place in Kurukshetra. And not only that, the biggest proof of Mahabharata is Dwarka. Dwarka, which was discovered in 1983 under the sea. So this actually proved that whatever had been said in our lores, in our books, was actually true. The god of the sea, Samudra, actually claimed back this area of Dwarka after the death of Lord Shri Krishna. And in Mahabharata also, the weapons described have been described so much in detail that it is a wonder that many scientists even don't understand what kind of weapons actually were used in the Mahabharata. It is still beyond their understanding. The lineage of all the kings has been described very correctly. So you can trace the lineage of the kings and their sons who later on came to the throne. So this basically proves Dwarka city, which was found under the sea in 1983, but not much progress could take place at that time. It was only later on that ASI could conduct a more detailed survey under the sea and substantiated that under the sea there are palaces of the Lord, statues, and also stairs and other important monuments, like even roads. Statues are there. And finally now, in the present government, a submarine is being prepared to take the people to the Dwarka site to witness the Dwarka city firsthand. So this is a very big proof of the exactness and the correctness of our great epic Mahabharata. The history has been so distorted by the Westerners, the Europeans and other persons, that one is not able to link up basically of how they could identify different dates for different kind of events. Like in 326 BC, Alexander the king of Macedonia, came with his entire army to conquer India because they had all heard about India being a very rich country and they wanted to come here to loot it or to exploit it. Alexander reached the Indus River, and there was a battle between Alexander's army and King Porus, who was the ruler of roughly the present day Punjab in Pakistan. In this war, Porus was defeated, and later on Alexander had to return because his army was very homesick and they did not want to fight any more wars. So basically he returned after this back to Macedonia. But he was one of the first Europeans who came from the west to the Indus River, almost the boundaries of India. He defeated Porus also. It is a well documented record and everybody has heard about it. Then why do they say that Vasco da Gama from Lisbon, Portugal, sailed for India and discovered India on 20th May 1498. He landed at Kozhikode in Kerala. Now 326 BC, and where is 1498? So the Europeans have got it all mixed up and they are not able to realize that what is the actual correct chronological events of our history. They have written it basically with a very Western perspective. That is what I feel. And another thing I feel, which I will not go into detail right now, but perhaps make a video later on, is that in our Indian history, the Mughals have been shown to be great emperors, very lenient, very tolerant, very good to the people, very royal, etc., except for Aurangzeb. But that was not the case. In fact, you have to delve deeper. They say that they brought Mughal architecture to India, etc. And they were also very, lenient towards Hindus, etc. But the fact remains that the Mughals and other raiders who came from the west of India, Central Asia, they were really tyrants. Like you can say Babur, Taimur, Tipu in our own country, other Mughal rulers. And how many temples they looted, how many Hindus were killed by them, how many times the temples were reconstructed and constructed again. So the basic aspect of their rule, they have failed to basically inform us about that. Because not only they looted the country, but they also destroyed hundreds and thousands of temples. And we are still facing that situation, the results of those situations even today. Another thing the Western scholars have said, that the British were very good to India, they brought the railways, they brought the English language, etc., etc. But then, why do you overlook that the British looted about $35 trillion of wealth from India? Not only that, the British destroyed the industries of India. The cotton industry was totally destroyed. The Gurukul system of education was totally destroyed. So these aspects are not talked about, but only their good side is highlighted. Now, as I told you about Sinoli and the Indus Valley civilization earlier, we have learnt during our school days and college days that there were no natives in India, and it was the Aryans who came from Central Asia and Western Asia, and they brought their culture with them, and that is how India was progressing. But these finds at Indus Valley, and more importantly Sinoli, it shows that India had native population. India had a very advanced technique of uh, house planning, urban development, weaponry, jewelry, seals, chariots were there. So there were natives in India, but nobody has talked about them. And it is not true that Aryans came to India and that is how Indian race developed, because this theory has now totally failed, and history perhaps needs to be rewritten again, to be examined again, because in many aspects we have only highlighted a few important developments and shown them as we wanted to show them, show to the public what we thought is correct. And certain people, individuals who wanted to show that history in that light, have shown it in that light. But still, a lot of research is required, and also the actual historical facts need to be brought out, perhaps to basically show us that what is the ancient history of India in its correct form. Thank you for watching this video.